Hello everyone. Alright, we'll just give it a few more seconds or a few more minutes for more people to join us. Okay. Alright. So, hello everyone. I'm Mind Mover Monique. I'm one of the science communicators of the Mind Museum. Welcome to another installment of Mind at Home. So, for the past few weeks or the past few months, all of us here in the Philippines, in the country, and around the world are going through a really difficult time. The COVID-19 pandemic has been affecting many lives. It has made a lot of people sick. It has put our lives on hold. We have been asked to stay at home to try to slow down the spread of the disease. So we are asked to stay at home as much as possible. If we can stay at home and not go out, that's a really big thing that we can do to help slow down the spread of the disease and to flatten the curve. So while you're at home, always remember to frequently wash your hands with soap and running water for at least 20 seconds. So this will help slow down the spread of the disease. So because it's a very difficult time, excuse me, it's a very difficult time for a lot of us right now. Our normal activities and routines are being disrupted. A lot of us are feeling anxious, or there's a bit of difficulty in coping with the situation. So what are some things that we can do to cope during this pandemic, and what can we at the Mind Museum do to help you guys, to help everyone? So according to several mental health experts, to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, taking the time to unwind and do things that you enjoy, do activities that you enjoy every day, such as reading or watching videos, can help you cope with the stress and the anxiety caused by the pandemic. So we at the Mind Museum firmly believe that we can have fun, we can unwind, we can do things that we enjoy, but we can also learn at the same time, so we can keep learning, especially for all of us who have kids at home, who always want to learn new things as well. So we believe that fun and learning can coexist, and that these are two things that can play a role in helping us cope with the present situation. So what can we do? We bring you the Mind at Home series, which we've been doing for a few weeks now. With Mind at Home, we at the Mind Museum are going to show you different activities, science activities or experiments that you can do at home using materials that you already have at home. Alright, so if you have any questions for our Mind at Home session today, be sure to ask them in the comment section, and we'll try to answer your questions in the video or in the comments after our session as well. So for today's session of Mind at Home, we're going to be balancing paper apples. So what does this mean? What are materials that you will need? You will need some paper, some thick paper, like an index card or a bit of cardboard from an old box of toys, of food, cereals, things like that. So it has to be thick enough so that it will not easily bend. Alright, so if it's too thin, you might need to find a bit of thicker paper. You're going to need some markers, a marker, and some scissors. And you're also going to need a few clothespins, clothes pegs, laundry pins, laundry clips, however you call them. You're going to need a few of these as well. So what are you going to do? Oh, sorry. You're going to draw an apple like this. So you're going to draw an apple on your piece of paper. So it's flat, okay? It's a piece of paper, a piece of cardboard. You're going to draw an apple on it, and you're going to cut it out, okay? And the challenge now for you is to make this apple balance on one finger. Alright? So it has to balance on one finger, but it cannot be flat like this. So if you put your apple on your finger like this, that's not going to count. Alright? So it has to be standing up, and you have to balance it on your finger. So how can we do this? Well, if you're going to try this at home, you're going to see what's a good place to put your the apple on your finger. So it's a good place right here because we have a natural place for our finger for our apple to balance on our finger. So we can actually put our finger here on the apple, and let's see what happens if we let go of the apple. So if we let go of the apple, what happens? The apple will fall down. Alright, so we can see that the apple will fall down even with the curve here, the notch where our finger can catch it. So it will not balance. So what can we do to try to make our apple stay balanced or stay on our finger? So this is where our other material comes in. We come back to our clothespin. We can actually attach two clothespins here to the bottom of our apple. Okay. And we can try to balance our apple again. So if we put our apple on our finger and we let go, we'll see that our apple is now actually balancing on our finger. So there's no tape, no tricks, no string or anything attaching our apple. Our apple still comes off. We can just put it on our finger and we can let it balance. So just by adding two of our clothespins, we balance our apple on our finger. So how does this work? How did this happen? How can we balance our paper apple on our finger? So we're actually doing something. We are changing something on our apple. And what we are doing is we are lowering the center of mass or the center of gravity. Alright, so something we call the center of mass or the center of gravity of our apple set up over here. Alright, so to explain that, we need to know what the center of mass or the center of gravity is. So the center of mass of an object is usually in the middle. So it's usually where the center or the middle of an object, and this is where the object will rotate, where it will be easiest for it to balance. Alright, and if we lower our center of mass, it will be easier for an object to balance. So what does this mean? If you have an object, a solid object, like many of the things that we have around us, if you have a ball or a box or a book, the center of mass is in the middle of that object. Sometimes the center of mass is not inside the object itself. It's not actually part of the object. So if you have something that's hollow in the middle, or if you have something that's an irregular or a weird shape. So for example, I have this roll of tape. Alright, in this roll of tape, the center of mass is actually here in the middle. So it's here in the empty space. So it's not actually part of the roll of tape, but the center of mass is in the middle, because it is the middle of where all the different parts of this roll of tape is. So it's in the middle. It's not part of the roll of tape, but the center of mass is there. So it's a place or a point in space or in the object where the center of all of the mass or the weight is, if we take into account gravity. So it is there. But for most objects, it's in the middle of the object. And what does it mean if we lower the center of mass? So we can see this actually. You might know this intuitively. If you have objects around at home, for example, if you have a bottle of water or any other drink, if you have a vase, or even if you have a few boxes at home, you'll notice that, for example, I have this container. If it's standing like this, it's tall. Right? So if it's tall, the center of mass is actually here around the middle. It's a bit high up off the point where it balances, or off the ground, or off the table. So if you add just a little bit of force, just by pushing it or knocking it over, you will see it will easily fall. So this is why you can intuitively know that if you have a tall vase or a tall bottle of water, it's very easy to knock it over. Just by pushing it a bit, it will actually fall over very easily. But if we lower the center of mass, so the center of mass which is here, if we bring it lower or nearer to the ground, so let's say if our container was on its side, alright, the center of mass is here, it's actually very near the ground, or in this case to my hand. It is actually very difficult to knock it over because it's so near to the ground or to the balance point. So if our center of mass is lower, then it will be easier to keep balance of different things. So we can see this if you have a shorter vase or a bottle or even a cup of water, it will be easier to keep that balance compared to if you have a tall vase or a box or a bottle or a glass of water. So taller containers have a higher center of mass. It is more easy for them to tip over and for them to lose their balance. Another way we can see this is when we put things in a bag or in a stack. When we stack things up, we sort of know intuitively that we should put the heavy things at the bottom and the lighter things on the top so that it will not fall over. So when we're filling up our bags or boxes, we're adding weight to our apple, and because we are adding the weight to the bottom, it's actually lowering the center of mass from here down to somewhere here, because most of the weight is where our plastic and metal clothespins are. So it actually lowers the center of mass from up here down to around here. And because this is where our balance point is, when we are lowering the center of mass or bringing our the center of mass near to the balance point, it's actually easier for it to keep its balance and our apple will not fall over. Alright, so you can see this. You can try this as well with other shapes. So I have here, aside from an apple is easiest because there is a curve here where it's natural for your finger to be balanced. You can try other shapes. I have here a square. So you can try, if you put a square or a rectangle on your finger, it will fall over. But if you put the clothespins there, it will lower the center of mass and you're actually able to balance your square. You can try this as well with other shapes. So I have here a triangle. We have our triangle here. And if you feel like you can try to experiment with other more difficult shapes or arrangements, I have a circle here. But I admit having the circle is a bit difficult. It's not working out so well for me right now. If you can try to do other things as well, you can try to balance the triangle or something on just one tip instead of the flat edge here. You can try to flip it upside down and balance the triangle on one tip. But this one might take some experimenting to try to figure out the right configuration, because I can't seem to do it right now. Alright, so you can try this with other shapes as well, not just with an apple. But for your first try, an apple might be the easiest one because of its shape. Alright, so this is again lowering the center of mass. What's another thing that we can do, another trick that we can do to find the center of mass of an object? So if you have a long, generally straight object, you can actually do this as well. So I'm going to use this again. You can see that if you put your two fingers, if you put your two hands, stick out one finger on each hand and balance the object on it, and you can slowly bring your two fingers together and you'll be able to find the center of mass. So if you notice, your fingers will move one at a time until we reach the middle of the object. And when you reach the middle of the object, it will actually balance at that point. So you know that this point where your fingers meet is just below the center of mass of the object. So you can do this with any object as well. Any generally long and thin object, you can use a barbecue stick. So you can bring your fingers together and they will meet at the middle. You can use a straw, you can use a pen, you can even use an umbrella or a walking stick or a cane if someone at home has one. Be sure to ask permission if you're going to use something like that. You can use this trick and you will notice that no matter where you start, if you start with fingers at both ends, you will notice they will meet in the middle. So this is the center of mass. But even if you start with one finger near to the middle and one finger at the end, you will notice that they will still meet in the middle. So this is another cool trick or demonstration that you can do to find the center of mass of an object. Alright, so you can balance it on two fingers and you can find that in the center. going to try to actually balance on a stick. I think this is what you mean, but let's see if I understood your question correctly. So if I have a stick here and I have our apple, you can actually balance it on a stick as well. All right. If you meant balancing it on a point of a stick, that I think it's also possible, but you need to be a bit careful because it might be difficult to balance. All right. So we balance it on a stick. You can balance it on the tip of your finger as well, if you can try that. What are other? Yes. So that's actually a very demonstration. You can actually see. You can try it as well. It might work with taller people, but even just yourself, it doesn't matter what height you are. You can do this experiment as well. If you stand up, you will notice that if you tilt a bit to the side, or to the front, or to the back, it's very easy for you to be knocked over and to fall over, right? If you tilt to the side, or to the front, or to the back. But if you're sitting down on the ground, if you're squatting, and you try to lean to the side, you'll notice that it's actually more difficult to be knocked over or to fall over. So this is because you have the same mass, right? It's the same weight of your body. It's the same person. But because your mass is lower or near to the ground, it's more difficult to fall over. So using that logic, it might seem logical. Maybe it's an experiment you can try. Just always be careful to see if taller people are easier to topple over or to knock over. All right, we have another question. Is this the same trick as the toothpick and forks? All right, that's a very good question. This is actually, it actually applies the very similar principles. It's the same principle. You can see there's another demonstration that you can do where you have some forks balanced on the tip of a toothpick, and you can actually balance them as well. So it's the same principle. It's finding the center of mass and balancing an object on a tip or a single point. So you can balance forks on a toothpick as well using this this concept of the center of mass. All right. Do you have any other questions? All right. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comment section, and we'll try to get back to them. We'll try to answer your questions about this topic, about the center of mass, if you have any. I think, if I recall, there was I was discussing this with some of the other mind movers. There was a question that came up: is this the same trick as the tightrope walkers use? So is that why tightrope walkers usually stick their arms out, or they have a very long pole or a stick to help them balance? So lowering the center of mass is actually one of the things that helps them keep their balance on a tightrope. So because they are adding some weight and adding the long rope, or stretching out their arms, they are lowering the center of mass. It's easier for them to keep their balance. But there are also other physics concepts coming into play as well. So it has something to do with inertia and rotation and things like that. So that's one of the things that one of the real life applications, although not very common, that we can see where we apply lowering the center of mass to keep things in balance. All right, so if you have any questions, we'll try to get back to those later. How can you balance a spinning ball? All right, so I think this question refers to when people spin like a basketball and it's on your finger, right? And you can spin it on one finger. This is related as well, so it has something to do with that, because you're spinning it actually, maybe not necessarily applying lowering the center of mass, but it has to do with some other physics concepts, like maintaining the rotational inertia or the rotational momentum. It actually keeps the center of mass centered right above your finger. All right, so that's how they're able to balance it. So as long as your ball is spinning fast enough and the center of mass is stable at the point above your finger, you'll be able to balance the spinning ball on your finger. But it takes a bit of practice as well. So center of mass and other physics concepts are taken into account for it as well. All right. We have another question. Are you familiar with a toy bird that is being perched on a stand with its beak? Is this the same concept? yes, there are actually, I think there's many different toys or different things that you can buy or you can make as well, where you will see some things which seem to defy gravity. They don't seem to be balanced at the right point. You would think they would fall over. But because of with our knowledge of physics, we can actually calculate and we can find that these things will actually keep their balance because the center of mass is above the point where it should balance. So because it is centered, it will keep its balance. So there are other things as well. There are sometimes different statues or different toys which seem to be off-center, or they're not balanced at the center, but they will actually keep their balance because the center of mass is centered above the balance point. It just doesn't seem like it is. But if you take into account all of the factors, it's actually balanced properly, and this is because of the balance of the center of mass and all of its other properties as well. Alright, so those were some very good questions. Thank you for your questions. If you have any more, we'll be sure to answer them in the comments below. So while everyone is at home, this is another session of Mind at Home. You can try these activities at home. If ever you're going to do these activities, be sure to take a video or take some photos, post them and tag the Mind Museum. Be sure to follow all of our social media channels for more Mind at Home videos and activities that you can do while we are all still in quarantine and staying at home. Always remember to wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. Please try to stay at home as much as possible to help slow the spread of the disease. And if you have to go out, please protect yourselves and avoid touching your face. So again, this is balancing apples and balancing other objects as well, other shapes. You can try this. Try making your own shapes. Try to see how complicated you can make the shapes or the setups be and still have them be able to balance on your fingers. So again, this works because we are lowering the center of mass or the center of gravity of the objects, and this will make it easier to balance. Alright, so this is Mind Mover Monique. Be sure to catch the next installment, Mind at Home. That's on Wednesday at 11 a.m. So starting this week, our Mind at Home videos will be at 11 a.m. on Mondays and Wednesdays. Alright, so thank you to everyone who has been watching, keeping up with us with our Mind at Home videos for the past few weeks. We hope to see you at the next one. Thank you again for all of your questions, and stay safe at home, everyone.